Welcome back to the dojo, y'all. Welcome back to the daily discussions. I am your host, Professor Hawk Sensei. If you're new to the channel, I want to say thank you for stopping by. Thank you for tuning in. And also, if you're returning, thank you for stopping by. Thank you for tuning in. Down to business, right? The topic of discussion for today: why is life so hard? Why is life so hard? I found myself asking this question many times over throughout my life. Why is life so hard? There has to be a better way. This can't be it. You know? Those exclamations, those feelings, those sayings. The answers that I always came up with were always very simple. I always had three conclusions I came to. First one being, it's designed that way. It's designed to be difficult. It's designed to weed out anybody who's not cut out for it, built for it. Survival of the fittest, if you will. That's one, right? The second is, we make life harder on ourselves. Sometimes the decisions that we make, they hinder us. They take us back. You know what I mean? They put us in a negative place when at first we were either in a neutral or positive place. You know, being negative, you gotta do some positivity just to get back to square one. You know what I mean? That's what I'm talking about. Sometimes the decisions and the choices in the past that we take make life harder for us. That's the second thing. And the last thing, right, is just ignorance. Sometimes we don't know enough about life or enough about ourselves as a person to even know what to do. Sometimes you're in a place of uncertainty. It may not even necessarily be ignorance per se, like willful ignorance, but more or less, you just don't know. You're oblivious to it. You're unaware. You're none the wiser. You know nothing about what is needed or required of you. You know that you got to get some money. You know what I mean? If you want to live a comfortable lifestyle, you got to get some type of income, right? Right? But ultimately, the way you get income is by making contributions to society. That could be on a very small scale or very large scale. Very small scale, making a difference or making contributions, cutting people's grass, and people pay you for that. You know what I mean? Little things like that. You got to make some type of contribution for people to give you money that they earned. You know what I mean? People don't just want to throw away money. Some people do, but not everybody, right? So when we go into the subject matter of why is life so hard, those are my three points. Those are the three focal points I want to look at. You know what I mean? Now, the first one I said. Well, let me just reiterate all three again. Right? Sometimes we make life harder for ourselves. I feel like one reason it may be designed that way, and the last reason was ignorance. So we're gonna start off with the design, right? The grand chessboard, if you know anything about it. If you've ever played chess, you know that white always makes the first move. Black goes second. White makes the first move, black goes second. So depending on where you starting out at, it's gonna be harder for you as opposed to for someone else. If you were born with a silver spoon, you know, if you were born with all the advantages, born with the resources, born with the connections, you get to move first. You know what I mean? And if you don't have nothing, you don't get to move first. You gotta watch everybody else take their turn, and then you get to go. And you get whatever scraps, or, you know what I mean? You gotta play on like counterplay, or you gotta play reactionary. You know what I mean? If you're a player too. Right? So when we talk about design, when you come into the world, you come into a specific family, right? That family has specific resources. And in your geographical region, there are things that you may or may not have access to, right? All of these things play a factor in how difficult or easy life is for you. So, in one aspect, it is by design. It is designed to be difficult. You know what I mean? Because, like I said before, survival of the fittest. Survival of the fittest. Right? Just like in the animal kingdom. Only the strong survive. Right? The most well equipped to survive. The ones who can run the fastest. The ones who can jump the highest. The ones who can strike the quickest and hit the hardest. Those are the ones who survive to be able to pass on their genetics. So, by design, in nature, only the strong survive. So, if you weren't blessed or favored by God or the gods, life is going to be more difficult for you. And that isn't just in a strength aspect, because our lives are not determined by physical strength solely. There's many different factors. So depending on how many of those check marks you got on your checklist, how many boxes of life have been checked before you come in here, you know what I mean? That determines the difficulty of your adventure, of your experience called life. That's the first one, the design philosophy. Then we go into our decisions and our choices, right? The decisions and choices that we make our life harder. So, for example, if you wanted to go to college, but you don't study and you always get mediocre or failing grades, you know what I mean? It's going to be very difficult for you to succeed academically unless you put in a whole lot of work. A whole lot of studying, late night studying, a whole lot of cramming, a whole lot of researching, a whole lot of writing, and a whole lot of questioning, And if you fail to do that, you're going to have a hard time in academia because you didn't prepare yourself for what you have to do. You failed to make the correct decisions at the correct time. So now everything moving forward is going to be harder. And the thing about academia is when you fall behind, you got to work 2, 3, 4, 5 times as hard just to catch up. And then once you catch up, you got to continue to pay attention and digest the information and be able to regurgitate it at a moment's notice. You may choose to live a life of crime. I'm not here to judge you. But if that's the way you go or the path that you choose, then understand if you choose one day to turn away from that life of crime, getting back into society is going to be extremely difficult. Not too many people are going to want to give you an opportunity to work for them because they don't trust you based on your record. You know what I mean? That's another thing when I talk about the decisions that we make. You may not always want to be on the corner. You may not always want to be, playing the role of a stick-up kid. You may not always want to do that. You may want one day to live peacefully, not have to look over your shoulder and stress about things. Even if you're not trying to get into the workforce, you know what I mean? Just that, because of all the dirt that you did playing in the streets, you know what I mean? Streets don't forget, so that stuff might catch up with you. You know what I mean? So having to stress about things that you don't know when they may occur. You know they may occur at some point in time, but you don't know when. Maybe 5 minutes, 5 months, or 5 years down the road. You know what I mean? So it's our decisions, the decisions that we make. You know what I mean? The decisions that we make can make life harder for us. But on the other hand, the decisions that we make can also make life easier for us. If we decide to save money at an early age, you know what I mean, and realize that material wealth and material things don't equate to peace of mind or happiness, you know what I mean? It gives you a dopamine rush when you acquire something new, or you put on some new gear, or you buy a new TV or a new car. There's a dopamine rush. It doesn't actually give you real satisfaction or real happiness. You just feel good about yourself that you were able to purchase this, or you were able to afford this, or you were able to maintain this, whatever it may be. You know what I mean? But acquiring material things does not make life easier. I would argue that it makes it harder, especially when you have to finance things. We have to take out loans for a house or for a car. It makes things more difficult because you always have to stress about, oh, I got to make sure I have this much in my account so I can make the payments so they don't repossess my shit or they don't evict me. You know what I mean? Whatever the case may be. So again, when I talk about the decisions that we make, we got to be very mindful and cautious when we're making life decisions. And sometimes we don't even know that we're making life decisions. We think we're just doing what we're supposed to do. Like, for example, having children. This is something that men and women, human beings, and animals of all shapes, sizes, colors, creeds, and species, we've all been procreating since the beginning of time, right? But nowadays, in our times, it is not what's the word? It is not a good idea to procreate if you don't have the resources to rear those children, to raise those children. You know what I'm saying? When you got to figure out where your next meal is coming from, I don't think it's a really good decision to have a child. That's just my opinion. EBT, food stamps, that definitely helps out, but you can't really be dependent upon other people or other systems for your own survival. That's something we all got to figure out. You know what I mean? And it's not a shot to anybody who's on food stamps, because I've been there. I've had food stamps, and it really a godsend when you're going through tough times. You know what I mean? But you don't want to stay there where you're always dependent upon food stamps, because if they cut your shit, guess what? Life is now more difficult, is it not? Yes, it is. Because now you've been dependent upon that supplement for food, and now since it's cut off, you gotta figure out where the money's gonna come from for you to be able to get what you had before. Decisions, right? So in the meantime, while you getting it, man, get on your feet. Find a way to get on your feet. I can't tell you what to do, but there's stuff out there. Maybe it may not be exactly what you want to do, but make that decision. Don't make life hard on yourself when it don't have to be, right? And last but not least is just, the lack of knowledge, not knowing, being oblivious, being unaware, being ignorant. However you want to see it, the reason why I wanted to forego using ignorant, because I think some people may find that offensive. But that's not what I'm saying. You just don't know. That's really what I'm saying when I say ignorant. You just don't know. No one was there to tell you, so how could you know? You know what I mean? No one was there to guide you in the correct path or to the way that you wanted to go the right way. You weren't given the tools. You weren't given the resources. You didn't have a hand guiding you. No, not that way, this way. You know what I mean? And a lot of us who are without a father, we find ourselves in those situations. Why is life so hard? Because you didn't have anyone guiding you through life. There were many people that came before you that were in the same situations that you were in at your age, but yet no one reached out to help you, and they saw that you were going through what you were going through. You know what I mean? That's another reason why life is hard, because no one is guiding us. We don't come into the world knowing anything at all. So everything that we learn about ourselves, life, survival, success, whatever, it comes over time and watching other people do things and learning from others, right? Everything that you know came from someone or something else. Yes, even me, every one of us, All the knowledge that is out there is shared knowledge. Someone else acquired that understanding or that know-how, and they decided to share it and pass it down or around, whatever the case may be, right? So when I talk about ignorance, obliviousness, not knowing, that's why, because someone has to teach you, someone has to guide you, right? And when you're young coming up, you think you know it all. You think you know it all. But at some point in time, you will be in for a rude awakening. And there may and will probably be hell to pay. Right? Because of our ignorance. In the Bible, it says our people die for a lack of knowledge. And that Bible is a very old book. And it's still happening today. People are dying for a lack of knowledge. People are dying because they are ignorant. People are dying because they are oblivious. They are none the wiser. They don't know what they're doing. Lord, forgive them, for they know not what they do. That's what we're talking about. That's what we're talking about. So when we ask ourselves, or we ask life, or we ask God, or we ask someone else, why is life so hard? These are the 3 reasons that I've come up with. There may be a multitude more, but those are the focal points that I want you to look at. This is what I found. If I'm your sensei, you are my disciple, these are the teachings that I'm gonna give you. I'm gonna give you the teachings and the knowledge that I have. Now, I'm not gonna say that I know everything. Feel free to correct me on anything. I would love to hear from you all. But I think we're about ready to wrap this one up. Why is life so hard? Why is life so hard? I don't really know per se, but I have a guess. I have some leads. And it was those 3 things. So with that being said, Professor Hawk signing out. Hawk Sensei bids you adieu. I hope you're waking up every day with a plan, a purpose, and a smile. If you're not waking up with a plan, a purpose, and a smile, hey, at least you're waking up. At least you're waking up. So, I want you to do me a favor. Go ahead and like the video, because I know you like this one. Share the video, because why not? We're not selfish, we're not stingy, and there's other people who could use this information. And last but not least, subscribe, because you came back too many times not to push that button. Class dismissed.